Good day. Good day. Hello. Happy Saturday. Happy weekend. Fix my pocket. Check my collar. Warm my hands up. How's everyone doing? Like you can answer me. I hope you're doing well. We already have one question in the chat. Saul is all over it this morning. Just wait for the space to start. 4 eyeballs in here. Yay, man. Eyeballs. It's kind of what we're after, I guess. It's new eyeballs is good, and old eyeballs. We need everybody in here, except. Good morning. Make sure my volume is up enough. Zen, you're muted.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Just putting this in the chat right now.
Yeah. Right on.
How was your week?
It was I love the holidays. The holiday week is just everything shuts down, so quiet, and I can get a lot done. So I had a great week. You?
Good. Yeah, work slows down a little bit, which is good and bad, right? There's positives and negatives to it.
Sure.
I see my employees kind of get out of the groove a little bit because of all the days. So work productivity goes down a little bit, but I think it was overall good.
Right on. Cool. Well, we have another kind of holiday week next week too, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. Is like this whole 2-week period, like everyone kind of goes into family mode, which is good, right? Like you can't just.
Yeah.
But yeah, even just emails, like because I work mostly from the office and management side and stuff like that. It's just barely any stuff is flowing in the emails. Everyone kind of just shuts down and enjoys the time with their family, which makes, I guess, my job easier because I have less emails and things to handle.
Yeah. I took some of my work home. I left my office here one afternoon at I think it was 2 p.m. It might have been I don't remember what day it was, but I brought some work home and I sat on a kind of a lazy boy, a chair thing by the window and worked and just enjoyed. Had a mug of tea. Oh, I had a good time. I did the same thing the next day too. It was so fun. I need to do that more often.
Yeah, if you can bring the work home. I used to never bring my work home, but now that I have a son and I enjoy more, bringing some of my things home. And not that I'm that much help, but just helping out my wife a little bit and also just hanging with him while I get a couple things done too.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps shake up the routine. And obviously that the holidays help both of us, I think, accomplish some of that. Because when you do shake up the routine, you can learn some things. So, yeah. Speaking of routine, the crypto routine has been shaken up too in the last week, 2 weeks.
Definitely. Yeah. I think definitely the news of our age that got blown out of proportion shook us down, and then we kind of shook ourselves back up. But I think now everyone's kind of in holiday mode / shock mode, like, okay, what's happening next? Are we moving up or are we moving down? So it's like the overall volume on chain has dropped off completely.
Well, not to be contrary, but I'm going to be contrary. Not to be contrary, but I'm going to be contrary. I got the data off the chain today, which I've been doing. And let me just share it real quick. Because I log the Pulse chain and Ethereum volume every day. And I just I'm not like looking for an average. I just take a snapshot at that whatever moment in time it happens to be. And I noticed something yesterday. Okay, let's go back from Christmas and then Thursday and then Friday. So pulse change volume on Christmas was $24 million. Thursday, $30 million. Friday, $32 million. So it's actually ticking up. But, December 21st, it was $172 million. Ethereum on Christmas was $1.9 billion, $2 billion on Thursday, $1.5 billion on Friday. So, I mean, the pulse chain volume actually ticked up a little bit, which is good. But I mean, like Christmas Eve, it was $54 million. So, yeah, it's about half of what it was just earlier this week.
Well, for sure, the volatility is not here right now. Everything on the chain, as far as the blue chips, is kind of just lockstepping slightly downwards right now.
Yeah.
There's nothing hopping in a different direction currently.
Yeah, and that's this is the doldrums. This is the holiday slowdown that we typically experience. I mean, people are unplugged. They're doing what you and I are doing, spending time with family, sitting on the couch, and we need to do that. We need a little reset. And this is the time of year for it, and it's being reflected in the charts. Am I bearish? 100% no. I am bullish.
Yeah, on that, I don't think we've talked about, did you watch the YouTube video with RH?
I watched about half of it.
What did you think of it?
Oh, it was so nice to hear from him. I love that guy. He's positive. He's positive. He's in control. Like, he's one of those choleric, get it done kind of guys. He's in control. He's confident. He boosted my confidence when I heard him, and I saw some of the snippets too from other people. But when he says, I think he said it was in the tweet, he says, it's going to be a great 2025. And I'm like, yeah, I like the sound of that, Richard. I enjoyed it. It was nice to hear from him. But yeah, I didn't listen to all of it because I don't need, as much as I like him and I like his chain and his products, I don't feel like we even necessarily need him to pump our bags. I think we're doing great, and I think he's got it all under control. And I don't need to keep up with everything that he publishes. Not to be unkind at all. I love the guy.
Yeah, I like that mindset. Going back to, we have plenty of stuff we could do on our own to increase our community size, increase the price, increase the liquidity, increase the burns. We have a lot of work to do still. Yeah. A lot of people like to look at him like we're dependent on him, but a lot of our success is dependent on ourselves.
Yes. And another reason I didn't finish the video. I mean, I'm busy. What am I busy doing? I'm like all day pTGC UFO stuff, whether I'm answering questions in the Telegram or getting ready for a presentation. That's taking a lot of my time. So it is what it is. And yeah, we got 7 people on Twitter, 17 on YouTube. Small group today. This is small group time.
Yeah, small group is good. If you have any questions that you want to ask and talk about specifically, so if anyone has any questions and don't want to come up, feel free to type them into Banana's comments of his YouTube, and if you do want to come up and chat or ask questions, feel free to.
Yeah. I did have a conversation with Jay Gold yesterday. I think I could say that publicly and he wouldn't mind. But, we were talking about my records in the spreadsheet. Now, we were having a conversation about pTGC and UFO. And I commented that, we're averaging, give me a second here. We're averaging about, in November, pTGC averaged 30 new wallets a day. In December, 29 wallets a day. He was blown away. I'm like, yeah, dude, this is known. It's right here. 29 new wallets every day. That's significant. I guess in light of where we are right now in the cycle when everything's a little bit red or holding steady. Yeah, 29 new wallets a day is pretty exciting. And then
I think that metric is something that not a lot of people pay attention to, but it's very, very important. Like, a lot of people tend to care so much about the price chart, they tend to pay attention to all the other metrics that are really bullish, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's 29 users potentially. I mean, it's probably not technically 29 new users, but we don't know from day to day who is picking up these assets and getting educated about them and getting ready to do another K for K. We just don't know who, 100%.
I would like to one of these days go through our holders of pTGC and UFO and find out where like the dollar amount is that, like, how many holders at least hold more than $1,000 of pTGC and UFO out of our 10,000, right? Like, just scroll down, figure out how many pTGC and UFOs equal $1,000, and then find out what number that is at. Because that's an important number, because like right now we have 10,000 holders, but how many of those holders are just dust wallets, right? Like, we kind of want to know how many holders have a significant amount, like let's say $1,000 or more, because that could really show you how early we really are. Like, let's say it's only 5,000, right?
Yeah, I published something briefly on Twitter earlier this week that, okay, how did that work? I got some information off of, I can't remember all the details, but basically what I learned is that, I know what I did. I did a poll in our Telegram asking people how many wallets they hold pTGC on. And by the way, 37% hold pTGC on one wallet. And I could pull it up, but basically I popped it into ChatGPT and I said, what can you tell me about the token distribution based on this poll that I think, I want to say we had a pretty good response to the poll, like maybe 50 or 60 people that input their information on the poll. So what it boiled down to was ChatGPT says, so we have basically somewhere between 6,000 and 6,500 actual holders, which was, to me, bullish from my perspective, because we have over 10,000 wallets, but we probably only have maybe about 6,000 holders. And I know that's true for other assets. Like, I don't know how many wallets Hex has, like maybe 300,000, but how many true holders are there? Maybe 100,000. So I'm excited about that token too. There's room, like you said, there's room for growth when you have those kind of numbers.
Yeah, definitely. I remember someone made a tweet, like, when you take out all the wallets that have burnt their hex and you take out OA wallets, because the market cap of hex is kind of fudged for marketing purposes and other purposes. Like, it's good to have someone who cares about the ecosystem hold a good line share of the bag, etc. But when you remove all those, they were saying that, like, something that Hex was only at like 170 mil market cap.
That makes more sense, really.
And that's extremely undervalued.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't verify any of that information. It's just what I read on Twitter, but kind of cool info.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hex has its place in the market for sure.
Yeah. Real quick, I did want to go over real quick what I really heard in the Richard Hart video, what I found interesting.
Please. Sorry.
Yeah. So I was in the same spot as you. Is he feels very confident in the position that he's currently sitting in with the SEC and with how Pulse Chain and PulseX are functioning as far as decentralization, which is super, super awesome to hear for people like us, right? Like, who have built and burned tons of value onto this chain, that he feels comfortable in the fact that nothing could ever happen to the chain. You know, he's safe right now. Everything's good. But even if something happened to him, let's say, nothing changes, right? Like, we are a decentralized, or if not the most, or one of the most decentralized chains out there. And it isn't dependent on our age. Yeah, people are hoping for bags to be pumped or him to live stream and help onboard people to this chain. But it's not dependent on it. It will function with or without him, which I love to hear. I love to hear that something isn't dependent on a sole person.
Yes.
The other thing that I found very interesting is he kind of had a specific spot where he was talking about how he would like to see people doing mailers more. And in the past, they've done mailers. So he must have had some good success with the Hex mailers. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do know what you're talking about. And I did a poll
Banana?
Yeah.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I was muted. I do know what you're talking about. And I have some opinions on mailers.
I want to hear it.
All the mailers I get in the mail, like before the elections, I don't even look, dude. It just, I can tell it's a postcard. It goes immediately in the garbage. I didn't even know what they were. I don't know who's, I don't have time to look through junk mail. It immediately goes. I throw half my other mail in the garbage, man. I don't want to deal with it. I did a poll. Granted, it was a couple of years ago. It's in my saved folder. I did a poll. I should try to find it. Let me find it, and I'll put it in our chat. It was insightful. I asked. Pretty sure it was in the Hex Telegram. I asked, "How did you discover Hex? Was it a postcard, a bulletin, a friend?" By and large, I mean the biggest cross section of people that got into Hex, it was a friend that told them about it. It wasn't a postcard or a sticker they saw on a gas pump.
Yeah, I was onboarded through a friend pretty much. What about you?
I was on, let's see. Let me think. It was a friend. It was a friend. He told me about Richard Hart and Hex. And I went and looked it up, and I was like, whoa, baby. I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting.
So,
yeah, that's a good point. That's real data. I was wondering, though, like, did Richard Hart, like, did some of our community have some really good luck with mailers? The only thing I don't like about the mailers is you don't really know after it's mailed, right? Like, unless you put, like, your personal information on that mailer and they hit you up like, hey, I got this mailer, like, I like this, this project, I want to learn more, but I don't think they're putting their personal information on the mailer, so it's kind of like catch and release, like
catch and release.
Okay,
yeah.
You're off on your own.
Yes. And there's, you could find information about how to more effectively market to people. I think we just get marketed marketed to so heavily that, we just ignore a lot of marketing. But there was a discussion in our chat overnight about marketing on billboards, which who can get away from billboards? Those electric ones on the side of the highways and such. People are stuck in traffic. What do you do? I mean, I've driven across the Dakotas. So boring, man. You're just dying even to see one billboard. I think billboards are an effective way of marketing, but it costs money, of course.
Yeah, still the hard thing about that is I feel with Pulse Chain, an average person, even if they wanted to get into pTGC or UFO once they saw the billboard and they, let's say, looked up the website, loved what they're seeing, they can do it on their own, right? And that's why I think the person-to-person works so well. You kind of follow through with helping them do it.
Totally.
Because an average person could never get over to Pulse Chain and buy pTGC and UFO. It's literally impossible. Yeah. The onboards that I brought in that are no coiners, I've had to if they wanted to DCA, I've had to do it for them every time they DCA. They did not comprehend the first few times.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some onboards like that too. They don't do anything in crypto. I do it all for them.
Yeah, it's a daunting place. They really have to want to learn themselves and spend hours on their own time really gathering information. If they never do that on their own time, every time they do want a DCA, they have to come to you.
Yeah.
One person who kind of started going down the rabbit hole of RH, and he's always messaging me tons of questions like, did you see this? Did you see this? And I'm like, yes, I don't think you realize how obsessed with this stuff I really am.
Sure. I'm scrolling through
and then the other thing is,
go ahead.
on the video, this is the last bit. He had a specific time where he was talking about X of Pulse X are really bullish due to the deflationary supply and the ability to gain demand off of the market just moving up and down via, Pulse X. Everything trades, or not everything, but a lot of the volume trades on Pulse X, which in more recent day equaled 300K of buy and burns on Pulse X. And he seemed very, very bullish on what Pulse X is doing and how it's outperforming Pulse Chain. And I found that very, very bullish for us because we operate off of the same mechanics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we operate off of the same mechanics in a little bit of a twisted way, right? Like, we don't make value off of every liquidity pair on Pulse X like Pulse X does. But when there's volume through our pairs, we're making more on that specific swap, to where Pulse X makes less on more, where we make more on less. And Pulse X is going to all buy and burns, and we are getting our percentages spread out between buy and burns, LP ads, APY to holders. So different fruit, but they're kind of in the same category, right? Like tangerine and orange almost. And I love seeing RH so bullish on those mechanics, because that's what those mechanics I was also really bullish on in the designing of these things. And obviously we're operating off of a lot of the same functions. So it makes me feel really good about the future for Pulse X in general and the future for us as well.
Yes. I found that poll, by the way. And it had 184 votes. 25% said a friend or family member told them about Hex. 26% said they have followed Richard Hart. Granted, this is 2 years ago, guys, just so you know. 19% watched a Richard Hart debate or presentation. 2% including, by the way, Jack Levin, who holds Hex, and 2% got a postcard in the mail. 1% saw a TV commercial. 1% saw a sticker or vehicle wrap, and 26% other. Or maybe that means they just wanted to see the results. So basically 50%, you could even call it like 70%. It was like a friend, or they already followed Richard Hart, or they saw him debating. 70% of people had some kind of connection to or through the founder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, two very different categories, I feel like. A friend told you about him and you looked into him that way, or you just stumbled across him on YouTube before or after the launch. But I think that's valuable information of where the onboarding happens. The onboarding happens from videos of RH debating people, from him just doing his own videos, and people stumbling across him or those videos on YouTube/Twitter, or just word of mouth.
Yeah. I love polls. They're so insightful. I'm going to drop one. I will drop a similar one, or somebody else can do it in our chat. It would be a little bit different, obviously, because we're not on TV commercials. And by the way, guys, whenever you drop a poll, always put a see results, because some people, you don't want anybody voting fictitiously, and some people don't want to vote for whatever reason. So if you put a see results tab, they can just click there and see the results. So I will drop it in our chat and see what we have, man. Let's do that. I will do it.
Yeah, sounds awesome. I'm interested to see too. That helps us know where to put our energy.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Absolutely. Why didn't we think of this sooner? Do you know if anyone has cashed out, like exited $1 million or more from pTGC or UFO?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think anyone would share that with me.
Somebody's cashed out at $500,000 out of UFO.
True. That is true, Coach. Yeah. That $500,000 sell.
There was two of them. So it could be the same person. Could not be.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. There's one. Let's see what else. We have some questions on YouTube. Saul asks, how high will UFO go this alt season from today? He wants a price prediction. 100x, 1000x. Can Zen answer this? We can answer that when we go into the moon math, Zen. A lot of, it all depends on what we're bonded with. Pulse, P-Dye, Teddy Bear, Atropa, Hex, Pulse X. If those perform, we will more than perform.
Yeah, I guess, Saw, if you're still listening, maybe you want to answer your own question. The first question I always ask myself is, how high do you think the average of the pulse chain or the RH tickers will go, right? So if you could type that into the chat, do you think on average RH tickers will do a 10x, 20x, 50x, 100x? Just throw that into the chat, and then we can play with our X numbers against that to make a educated prediction of what the future might hold.
Yes.
Because a lot of people make these future predictions just off of like what they want, but not off of any data. And that's what we kind of try to do with our moon map, is we're using actual data of what we believe the blockchain could do, along with even our past performance against the blockchain, to make a educated guess for the future.
Yeah. So
if you're listening, Soft, maybe throw a couple of those in, like, hey, I think the RH tickers in average will do this. And then we'll play with that number.
Yeah. Hex Gynecologist says he would like to hear the founder's opinion regarding to if UFO will reach equilibrium with PTDC, given that UFO is rising at a higher velocity than PTDC in the past few months.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why it couldn't, right? Like, I definitely think it can. I think the reason it was rising at an equal or a faster rate is obviously because it was new and was a lower market cap. But as UFO gets closer and closer to PTGC's market cap, I believe the outperforming will slow down until possibly they become pretty close. They are very, very bonded to each other. And then something in mind that I want people to keep always thinking about is, this is where I always go with this question, because I ask myself this question too. UFO has more LP, and the LP is the value generating system of that's our utility, right? Like, our LP web is constantly generating value for the holders and for buy and burns and for LP ads. So currently, UFO, if you look at the last 6 months, has been garnering or generating way more value than PTGC due to its LP web being bigger, right? And even though it's a smaller market cap, it's generating more value. So as UFO goes up, it should generate more value and more value and more value, especially if users keep adding LP instead of removing LP, which is unknown. Like, we don't know how the community will react if they take profits out of their LP, or maybe they stay within forever. I think a good portion of them will stay forever because they're educated on the system. But where I'm getting at with this is, as UFO becomes more successful, this is one of the things I love about UFO, is it in turn buys and burns the living heck out of PTGC.
Yes.
So, it's 1% on every transaction. So if you have $100,000 of volume that day, that's $1,000 of buy and burns a day of PTGC. If you have $1 million of volume a day, that's $10,000 of buy and burns a day. Well, let's say it gets to 10 million. Let's say UFO starts getting really, really successful. Well, that would be $100,000 of buy and burns of PTGC a day. So with the success of UFO, if it becomes more successful, equally successful, or a little bit less successful, it in turn will be buying and burning the heck out of PTGC at that same time, which obviously increases the price of PTGC.
Yesterday, UFO burned 3 times more PTDC.
And I think that's been like the average, right?
Yeah.
Throughout the last 6 months. So what we've found is, on average for the last 6 months, UFO is actually buying and burning 3 times more PTGC than PTGC itself. Now, if you think about it, not right now, but in the future, we will be pushing DAO proposals towards buy and burns again instead of LP ads. So I do think that will shrink when we go back to buy and burns with the DAO of PTGC. But at that rate, it's like, okay, well, now we have 2 massive projects buying and burning PTGC, the DAO of PTGC and UFO. Well, what's that do for PTGC's price? And can UFO keep up with that?
Yes. I'm going to get us an average of how much PTDC UFO was burned in its lifetime. Average is 2.55 times. Since I've been keeping record, UFO is burning 2.55 times more PTDC than PTDC itself. 2.5 times. Wow.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed, so UFO was really, really outperforming PTGC. But what I've realized in the last, it looks like month, PTGC's actually been outperforming UFO. And I believe this is the reason, I could be wrong, is UFO hasn't had any real consolidation periods, like 80% dips or whatever, but PTGC has. So I think this last run-up of UFO, there needed to be a little bit of consolidation to where people took profits, new users came in. Because of it never really experiencing that, it literally was sitting at like a flat range, and then it just jumped up like a 40x, right? So now those people are kind of having to decide if they want to take profits. New users come in at the dips. Some people are going to stay long-term. So that's kind of what's happening with UFO right now. If you look against UFO and the price of Pulse, we are on a little bit of a retracement. But pTGC, since it's been out longer, has actually experienced this like 3 times now. So we've already done some 80% dips of washing with pTGC. And if you look at the pTGC chart against Pulse Chain, the US dollar, we actually are sitting closer to all-time highs on pTGC compared to UFO.
If you look at it against
So in the last
Pulse.
Yeah, and you can pull that up on your screen if you want, Banana, for anyone watching on there.
I will.
Sounds like Hexologist will be. So if you go to the UFO chart and you switch it to UFO versus Pulse, you can see that there has been a little bit of a retracement. And I think that's just due to the fact that it went up so much, right? It went up like a 40x in the matter of a couple months. So naturally, some people will take profits, but pTGC, since it ran up not as hard as UFO, just like Hex Gynecologist was saying, it actually kind of has sat more sustainable at the top. It's actually sitting close to all-time highs currently right now against Pulse.
Okay, so let's do. Sure. Let's do a quick measurement. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I thought I was going to sneeze. Let's measure from the top to where they are right now. UFO, in terms of Pulse, is down 20.3%. Now let's look at pTGC. I haven't actually done this. I haven't looked at this yet. Oh, wow. It hasn't retraced at all. I mean, like, not even worth measuring. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's like maybe 3% if you really want to get granular on it. But UFO is over 20% retracement from the top against Pulse. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know where you're pulling from. Are you pulling from the candle bodies?
Yes, just the bodies, not the
wicks.
Yeah, not the wicks. That is interesting. Well, UFO had a really strong run up, so it's cooling off a little bit, I think.
Yeah, which, opportunity wise, we still know what these machines are. If you want, you can look at that as an opportunity in UFO, or you can look at it like, oh, it needs it's cooling off a little bit right now. I'm gonna go into pTGC because it has already cooled off 3 times in the past, right? Which that's not even specifically due to pTGC. Like, a lot of that cooling off is just due to Pulse Chain cooling off. And then that's what we're experiencing right now, in my opinion, is a lot of the down pressure that's on pTGC and UFO has nothing to even do with pTGC or UFO. It's just the blockchain cooling off temporarily. And then when we move forward with all the blue chips of Pulse Chain and Pulse Chain, then we just blow past old all-time highs. This is what we've done repeatedly over and over again.
Well, that's the thing. That's 100% correct. It's not just because of pTGC or people selling pTGC or UFO. It's the overall market. And if once people understand those kind of things, is like, if you do like a 40x, it's not going to keep on going, do 100, 150, 500x type of thing. There's always going to be some kind of consolidation of the overall markets. So, like, for example, we experienced a pretty big, significant pullback on Pulse X, Inc., PHEX, EHEX. and we actually had the same kind of extension upward. So one of the things that I was going to bring into the table of the conversation, like UFO or PTGC, I think UFO outperformed PTGC because of the liquidity pool that EHEX actually has tied with UFO and PHEX, because that in UFO there's a lot greater LP value right there, in the X multiplier effect with UFO got basically almost 1,000% up between both EHEX and PHEX. And then in regards with PGC, we didn't have the same kind of effect in terms of PHEX and EHEX. It's like, one, we don't have any we just started adding EHEX liquidity pools, and the PHEX we started adding more liquidity for the last 3 months. So effectively, that I think is one of the reasons that UFO has actually outperformed PGC, but they will be going up and down together regardless. So that's my take on that.
That's a good point, Coach. Like, a lot of people ask, like, which one I should go into. Well, another thing we could ask them is, like, well, look at the web of PTGC and UFO. Is there a web that you find fits your personal personal portfolio better? Like, you think, like you said, if you're someone who is bullish on EHEX, UFO has tons of EHEX liquidity compared to PTGC. So you could also make decisions of like what the web is connected to, right? PTGC ratio wise has a lot more Atropa and Teddy Bear LP than UFO. So if you're really, really bullish on Teddy Bear and Atropa, maybe PTGC is something that you're more into than UFO. So you can kind of look at not only the PTGC and UFO tokens themselves and what tokenomically appeals more to you, but you can also look at the connected assets and make a decision that way as well.
OW answered your question about how many wallets hold $1,000 or more at PTDC. He estimates it's roughly 2,350.
Yeah, that's great info, right? Like, I wonder what UFO is. It's probably less.
Can you find that?
Because now you know that shows how small and early we still are. Only 2,000 people hold a significant amount of PTGC.
Mm-hmm. Well, what else, guys? What's happening?
I've been thrown up the last 2 days. It's been great.
Oh, that's awful.
You trying to lose some weight for summer?
No.
Coach went bulimic. No,
it's been a shitty feeling. Still have like the chill, or whatever you call it, the shakes. What is it? The chills? Yeah.
The shills. Yeah. I'm going to DM you something, Coach.
Banana, did Saw ever get back to us on what he believes on average RH tickers will do this cycle?
He hasn't yet.
If anyone else listening wants to just type a number in there, I like to use numbers from the community instead of us, just because we've done it so many times. It's more fun when we use other people's guesstimations or what they're hoping for, whatever. Just throw something in there.
Way more fun. Yeah. Yeah, the chat's been pretty lively, actually. I was in my starred section, but it has been pretty lively here on YouTube. So I missed a lot of stuff.
Is there anything else worth talking about?
Let's see. Ex-gynecologist says UFO burns PTGC, but PTGC does not burn UFO. So what do you think long-term price comparison between these two assets? In other words, do you think UFO has any chance in being higher price of PTGC?
I think it definitely has a chance. I would say there's no reason why it doesn't have a chance. And price, if you're talking about US dollar price, there is 3 times the amount of supply of UFO than PTGC. So maybe you would look at market cap instead, even though market cap is not the best metric to look at either. But I think it really depends on where people see the value or where they find that they want to stay, right? Like currently right now, UFO has been paying more APY. So maybe due to the higher APYs for holding or LPing with UFO, maybe that gets users, if users or big players are more into that, maybe they're more drawn to UFO. Also, the fact that UFO has twice as much LP than PTGC, maybe big players find that a lot more attractive, or maybe they find that less attractive because it's harder to pump. So and that's why a lot of people ask me, like, which one do you think will do better? I don't think we know which one's going to do better. I'm super excited to see, into the future, and I don't think it's going to be consistent the whole time. I think there'll be months where PTGC is doing better and months where UFO is doing better. And naturally, that's kind of what we've seen for the last 6 months. Also with PTGC and UFO, we'll see one of them get some attention for a month, and then attention goes back to the other one. It kind of flops back and forth. But yeah, well, I think it'll be interesting. I do agree with gynecologists, though, is UFO is constantly going to be buying and burning PTGC, where PTGC is not doing anything besides like they're connected in a large amount of LP for UFO. So with the success of UFO, it in turn makes PTGC more successful every single day. And that's, what it was meant to do, is it's an amplifier to PTGC in a way.
It also amplifies the conversation, which occurred to me a few minutes ago. Can you imagine? Not that it would be so much more difficult, but imagine our spaces if all we had was to talk about was PTGC. UFO really livens up the conversation because we have 2 tokens to talk about, and they're related, so we can talk about the relationship too.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I think a lot of times even people will talk about new projects and stuff like that out of just boredom, right? Like they'll just go venture into different ecosystems just because they've talked about the same thing so much, and it doesn't even mean that new ecosystem better or worse.
Yeah.
They want to just hear something new.
Yes.
And I agree. I think UFO was a good addition of just something new for us to study. It's also shown to be very, very valuable, I think, to the PTGC ecosystem. There's days where it's bought and burnt like $20,000 worth of PTGC in one day, which is quite a bit. And I think those days are small compared to what our future holds.
Yeah. I want to say this publicly, since y'all are here, we're all together. Shill Gates is holding that interview for a better time to drop it. Let's put it that way. It hasn't gone up yet. He's waiting. It's like something he's savoring to drop. He wants to do it right, which I am thankful for. So you haven't heard anything about it because he's waiting. Rolando says the lower the $1,000 holder count, the higher the FOMO for me. And he also says Interpol was great marketing. I would agree. In a post-COVID, oh man, can we talk about that? In a post-C word world where I had like a lot of my friends don't even talk about deep S stuff or, conspiracy stuff and all that. But I'm going to tell you what, man, during that time, everybody was talking about, I was shocked at the people that were talking about, deep S and this and that. I was like, well, this world is waking up. I would say, in a post C word world, yes, I agree with that statement. Interpol is probably good marketing, whereas before it may not have been, because people still had a higher, in my opinion, had a higher degree of trust for those authorities.
Well, especially if we beat them, right? Like if we come out of these times with a win, like even the SEC case, if the SEC case has been suppressing us, but if let's say the court case gets dismissed, well, then that turns into like ammo for our ecosystem. I don't know how many like blockchains and stuff have gotten dismissals like that. I don't think many. So it kind of puts us in an upper tier as well, right? Like that becomes very attractive. Like, hey, they've already been looked into and the court got dismissed, right? Or the case got dismissed.
Yeah. Hexagoncologist comments. He says, given what you stated, wouldn't it make more sense to get more UFO now because it seems that UFO is at a steeper discount than pTGC?
Guys, we got to remember that there's LPs between pTGC and UFO as well. So
yes,
they're going to be going up and down together regardless. And then another thing I would take into account, you got to understand too, UFO has more liquidity with Pulse, and a lot of people utilizes that Pulse liquidity pool, and there's a lower percentage in that pool than UFO. So the volatility of pTGC is going to be a little bit more violent. So that means more violent to the upside and then more violent to the downside. And takes to UFO. Majority of the people that are in UFO are most likely in LPs. If they're not, they're just buying the tokens off the market and holding in their wallet.
Mm-hmm.
So that might bring it effect maybe a year from now. And that's what I would just keep in consideration.
Yeah, Banana, I think just basically speaking, UFO obviously is at more of a discount from its all-time high right now. You could look at that as a positive or as a negative.
Yeah, I know which direction I would lean right now. It'd be toward the one that looks like it's more on sale. I think the sentiment is, I mean, if you asked, because I know I have asked this question, what do you guys, which token do you think is going to pump harder? And it's, I mean, nobody really tends to lean toward one token versus the other. So whichever
I feel like people ask this question in the RH ecosystem, right? Is just as much. Like, which RH ticker do you believe is going to pump the hardest? Because obviously people would want to hold that one, I would assume. So it's not just our ecosystem people are asking this question. They're also asking it in the RH ecosystem. Like, is it Pulse X? Is it PHEX? Is it EHEX due to the lack of liquidity and the fact that a lot of people have been washed out? Yeah, there's just so many factors. You also have to make sure there's liquidity there once you do those X's, where Pulse obviously will have the most liquidity. I think a lot of people at first, before Pulse Chain launched or at the beginning of Pulse Chain, people thought that Pulse Chain was going to do the most amount of X's, but then they realized that due to reflexivity, it's actually more likely that the alts will do more X's over the blockchain. So people are shifting their view on what's going to do the most performance this cycle. And I think it's been shifting the entire time.
The only pulse that I hold is what I'm keeping for gas and what I'm earning in my UFO LPs. I'm flipping my pulse into either pTGC or UFO, whichever one I think is most on sale at the time. I mean, just like I wouldn't necessarily hold Ethereum on that network, I would hold another token on that network. You know, that's what I'm doing. That's my opinion. What is the best tool to view the liquidity webs for each? I would say that would be secretobank.com, Derek. Secretobank.com. I'll put it in the chat for you.
Yeah, I think on Look Into pTGC, there's also a section as well.
Ooh, let's do that.
I forget where it is, though.
Yeah, Kong was showing me some stuff.
Oh, yeah. If you go to UFO LP.
I got to log in real quick. Okay, I'm logged in. UFO LP.
Yeah, and then you can click on Pool Statistics, and you can click pTGC or UFO, whatever one you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will tell you the total pTGC liquidity, the total 24-hour volume, and then it will show you a bunch of little boxes that show all of the liquidity pools, what their value is, what their specific 24-hour volume is, how many transactions are in it, etc.
Yes.
In the 24-hour.
So like the pTGC WPLS pool has $1.7 million in LP, $27,000, 24-hour volume. It's down 1.5%. 33 buys, 30 sells. Ooh, it gets really granular with those buys and sells. I like that. Yeah, man. He was showing me some stuff yesterday on this site that, you know, there's so much in here. I haven't even seen everything he's building on it.
Yeah, I don't know if yours has on the boxes up above, if some of the numbers are leaving the boxes. Maybe need to tell him to do something there.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
It seems like the first one he has those dots that keep it in the box. Probably needs to add that to the code.
Yes. Yeah.
But overall, I think this is for the question that you had. If you want to look at the LP web, this is a super easy spot to kind of look at it. I would be really interested if Kong was able to almost create a web image that showed all the LPs in almost a web form, connected, and then where the bigger the LP is, the bigger possibly a bubble gets or something like that. So you can just see very visually size-wise and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I know Access has something very similar to that they've built, which is private to them. So it'd be cool maybe if we could get our own thing put together that operates in a similar fashion.
Yes.
At least for our ecosystem.
I'll ping him real quick about that.
And then we can look at UFOs too. So I clicked on UFO right now. 8 million in liquidity. 21,000 in volume. And then you can look at the pairs, UFO PLS, 2.5 mil, UFO EHEX, 1.2 mil, UFO Wrap Bitcoin, 400,000. I wonder why these aren't in order as far as size goes. I would have to ask them on that. UFO Dive, 4.6 mil, Hex UFO, 2.5 mil, Ink, 1 mil. There's a lot of them. I'm not going to run through them all.
And they're in pretty much a random order, is how it looks to me.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if we got them in the correct order as well.
They're not. They're in order by 24-hour volume. It looks.
Oh yeah. That's cool. That's actually probably better.
Yeah.
I like that because it's showing what pairs are performing for us. So that's interesting to look at, right? Like today, UFO EHEX is definitely not one of our biggest pairs, but it's our second top performer of the day as far as generating value for our ecosystem.
Yeah.
Obviously, Wrap Bitcoin's performing quite well as well. The thing I find interesting about the Wrapped Bitcoin pool is what that pool generates. Anyone providing this liquidity is almost doing that as a service to the ecosystem because they're not earning PLS as far as LP rewards go. So anything this generates actually adds to the PLS rewards that the farmers are doing. Because these LP providers aren't getting any of the PLS rewards. Their PLS rewards are going to the people participating in the farm. This is any LP pool that's not in the farm. Does that make sense to you, Banana?
What was that last part?
So if you are farming on the DApp of UFO, you're earning PLS, right?
Yes.
And you and all the other people farming are earning your portion of the 20 or of the volume. But anyone providing LP in the non-farm pairs are still gaining value for the ecosystem, but they're not receiving their share of the PLS.
Right.
So their share of the PLS is actually going to all the people who are farming.
Yes.
And this is any pair that isn't listed in the farm.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Just something interesting.
It is interesting. It makes me happy. I like to earn more. Johnny Ronka asks, when PWBTC goes to parity, which is roughly a 100x from here, how much of a multiple do we think UFO will do on top of that? And will it be instant or take a few days?
Will the Wrap Bitcoin go to parity instantly, or will it take a few days, or will our X's over Wrap Bitcoin take a few days? Either way, my answer is I believe it would take a few days, whatever his question is.
Yes.
I don't think things are going to parity instantly. I think they're naturally going to get there, and if RH does want to collateralize them at the top or arbitrage them together, he will do so if that's part of his plan.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's something that's going to happen overnight either way. As far as X's for us goes, I'm not completely sure how many X's we will do over Wrap Bitcoin or PDI or even Pulse. What we've seen in the past is we've outperformed them by quite a lot, like hundreds of X's. But as we go higher and higher, it will become more difficult. We'll have to have more value entering into our system. But I don't think that's going to be too difficult, especially once Pulse Chain becomes successful. Because then there'll be fresh money coming in, looking for real stores of value that are deflationary and pay you APY just for holding. I think in markets in general, there is a huge niche, like tons of value in the world goes to store of values. Look at, gold or stocks. Like, people who are participating in this stuff are trying to store their value against the inflation of the US dollar. So this has a huge market fit. On top of that, we're an index, which we know in the real world that there's a huge market, tons of value sits in indexes. So this also is really bullish for us because we're hitting some of the highest categories of dollar value in the world, right? We want to be in the category of these high dollar values because then that means there's tons of value that can move to our ecosystem and see value where we are, right? Like, if we're some weird niche that in the real world there's no value in, why would there be tons of value in it in crypto? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We know the wheel works. We just need to improve the wheel. Like, for an example, in the old days, wheels were made out of wood. Well, nowadays we have tires with air around them, etc., to make the wheel better. We didn't need to reinvent the shape of the wheel. We just needed to improve it as technology advances.
I just learned something interesting on secretobank.com. You can click on the quote token and it will give you the pair address. So I have the pair address for UFO wrapped Bitcoin, and I pasted it into my DEX screener. And because I was curious about Johnny Ronca's question, UFO versus wrapped Bitcoin, and how UFO could perhaps perform when, that's an assumption, of course, when wrapped Bitcoin perhaps reaches parity. So historically, UFO is up. Well, it's up 300% against wrapped Bitcoin right now, since I guess the pair was made, back in May, and it has been as high as 600%. So UFO has a history of performing better than wrapped Bitcoin. So that should, answer your question about X's. If wrapped Bitcoin does a 100X and UFO continues this trend of moving 3X against wrapped Bitcoin, then UFO could do a 300X. So there you have it, Johnny. What you do is you go to DEX Screener and put your DEX Screener on wrapped Bitcoin, not USD, and you can simulate the same thing. Tails Dreams, I don't understand your question. You say, are we still throwing out a number for the calculator for Pulse X's? I mean, I kind of follow you, but it's a little vague.
I think the answer is Tails. If you have enough on us to throw in there, feel free to shoot it out.
And it's about time for us to pull up the calculators. Anyhow, remember we're trying to do it at the top of the hour so that we make sure that we get into it at least once.
Yeah. So anyone in the chat has a number.
You're breaking up.
As far as X's go, feel free to.
I think you're asking for somebody to drop it.
Just anyone. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Tails Dream says if Pulse Chain does a 415X. Let's have a look. And is this in relation to? We will do both pTGC and UFO. Okay. pTGC Pulse. What kind of X factor do you want to do, Zen?
I'm gonna pull up the chart right now and see what we've done in the last 6 months.
Okay.
So that would be July. So from July,
Get ready, guys.
We are currently up 13x against Pulse since July.
That's 6 months. So that's a X factor of 2.
No, that would be an X factor of 13x.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll take your word for it. I don't quite understand. I thought you would divide by the number of months.
Well, I'm just saying in general, in the last 6 months, we've went up a 13x against Pulse Chain.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
So what we're saying is, let's say we just do that again in the next 6 months or a year when Pulse Chain does that, which this is going to equal a crazy high number, guys, just so you know. Like, it's going to be, this is as moon math as moon math gets, but we'll do it for fun. And then how about we suck back some of these numbers?
Okay. So we're doing an X factor of 13 and then a pulse move of 415x, but that's, assuming that this happens in a 6 month span.
Or it could be any span. Just what we're doing is, at the peak of the bull market. This could take 5 years if that was the time horizon.
You're right. Yeah. Okay. So I calculated it. pTGC would do a 5,400x, $2. $2 per pTGC. You. All right. Let's tone that down a little bit. Let's use the same X factor though. Let's make Pulse do 100x. It's just going to be a fourth. It's going to be like a 50 cent. 48 cent pTGC. If pTGC moves 13x's against Pulse and Pulse does a 100x from here, that would be a 50 cent pTGC. 1300x. I keep thinking, man, the more I am in this ecosystem, the more I understand these tokens, the more I'm thinking that pTGC and UFO are they're like 10,000x tokens, man. Remember 3 years ago when that term was batted around so much, everybody was using it, but you don't hear it anymore. I think we're all experiencing recency bias. The recent thing that happened is the bear market, and we're relating our worldview of crypto to a brutal bear market, and we have forgotten how high crypto can go. On the flip side, what we need to prepare ourselves for is recency bias coming out of the bull run that we're currently going into, and perhaps and probably even likely forgetting how low crypto can go in a bear cycle. Recency bias. I learned that from Richard Hart. So our bias right now is we're not even talking about 10,000x tokens anymore. Well, I think these tokens have the potential to do it. Granted, we've already done many of those X's, but we have a lot more to go. What do you think about that?
I think the thing is a lot of people didn't understand how those X's were possible, and there wasn't a lot of education on how those X's were done. And what we're trying to do is show people mathematically and LP-wise, ratio-wise, with connecting an undervalued asset to an undervalued asset actually makes it very, very easy to do these X's. And I'm talking about the undervalued assets of pTGC and UFO being connected to the undervalued assets of Pulse Chain, Hex, PulseX. I think a lot of the people here on Pulse Chain can agree that PulseX, Pulse Chain, Hex are all undervalued. And when you connect things that have sustainability, longevity, tokenomics that are designed to keep pushing the price up against the blockchain, it creates scenarios that might feel impossible in other circumstances, but are very real in this situation. And you can either, believe mathematically what's going to happen with Pulse Chain being remotely successful and get on board, or you can not and sit on the sidelines and just watch what it does without you.
Yeah. Tails Dreams added a little context to his question about Pulse, or his statement, Pulse. The reason he picked that number, 415x for Pulse, is because that's what Binance did at its first cycle. It went from 6 cents to $25. So it was 41,566%. He's like, don't know if we're better than Binance, but
yeah, that was something I used to see getting shot around a lot. Like there was a specific chart that had a bunch of competitor layer ones and the X's that they hit per cycle. And then it even gave the average of all of them. And I think the average was like 100 and something X.
It was 600. It was 646x.
Was the average?
Correct.
Okay, well, yeah, that's even better. Some of them had lows, you know what I mean? I think some of the really bad ones were like 12x and stuff like that, but obviously some were really high.
I think the lowest X was 56 or 81x on that chart.
Oh, okay, yeah. Both would be awesome, right?
yeah. Well, let's say we, to tone it down a little bit, 646x average, and let's say we had a horrible bull cycle, that would be a 65. We'd call that a 65x on Pulse Chain. So let's put that in here in the calculator. 65x on Pulse. I'm going to include that 13x multiplier. That would be hold on. That is, something's not, the math here ain't mathin'. pTGC, PLS, X factor 13. Oh, okay, I put it $65. That's why. 65x would be a 31 cent pTGC, or 845 X's.
Yeah, the thing I love about that is if Pulse Chain gets to those levels and we get to those levels, our liquidity web at that point would probably be like 400x the size it is today. And if you take $20 million and multiply that by 400x, you start getting liquidity pool sizes that are ultimately unimaginable for a sub ecosystem of the blockchain, right?
Yes.
Like that would be an $8 billion liquidity web. And then what you have to remember, that $8 billion is working for the holders of this ecosystem 24 hours a day, not only giving them large liquidity to enter in and exit out of, creating a great place for whales to come and store their value, earn APY in a deflationary asset that's designed to keep going up in price, but also all that value is generating more value 24 hours a day. Obviously, some days more than others based on volatility and volume, but that's a ton of value working for the holders of this ecosystem.
Yeah. If Pulse did the average of 646x, even at a X factor of 2, it would still be near 50 cent pTGC, which is at 1300x from here.
Yeah, there's multiple ways we can do this, right, Banana? Like, we can have a very, very successful Pulse Chain and a lack of X's that we do over Pulse Chain, like you just said, a 2x. Or we can have a very, very successful UFO and pTGC and a minimally successful Pulse Chain, right? Like, let's say Pulse Chain only does a 20x, but we do a 40x over Pulse Chain. Well, that's what I love about this ecosystem, is part of the success is in our hands. We control our future and our destiny. We don't need Pulse Chain to do hundreds of X's. we want it to, of course, right?
Mhm.
Like that would be awesome. It's more X's multiplying by the X's we can do. But there's tons of X's we can do on our own that we get to multiply by the X's RH's ecosystem does.
That would be very similar to just launching on a L1 that's in his second or third cycle that basically ramps up by, a 3 to 5x now every year, right? That would be like launching something on ETH or Sol that's already done their massive amounts of X's.
Yeah. And obviously we believe Pulse Chain has way more than that, right? Like it's so undervalued in our opinion, but even if we're incorrect there and it only does a 10x or a 20x, well, we still have plenty of X's we can do, and I believe will do over that. We already have, right? Like we've been walking up this down escalator for a year and a half now, and we've done tons of X's already. And the system, as we get bigger, only gets stronger.
And by the way, guys, if you guys want this calculator that we're using, it's lookintoptgc.com. There's a free section in here, and then there's a paid section. And I think it's like $22 a month. And you guys can go in here and dink around. and there's not just calculators, but there's all kind of historical data in here, like on staking and locking. And it's pretty lit. And Kong is he's continually updating it. So there's more coming. So basically, even if you got in now and you're paying $22 a month for it, as he builds, you're earning more value for your $22.
Yeah, one thing that just got added recently is he built a staking and locking dApp for pTGC on his site. So now there's a community-driven staking and locking dApp that interacts with the pTGC smart contracts. Just creates more decentralization. Hex has this too. There's community members that have created staking websites alongside RHs. So there's multiple out there, and Kong just created one for pTGC, which is awesome.
And I'm sure it's not in the paid section.
It's in the paid section currently.
It is.
I think
Okay.
Eventually he might be moving it to the non-paid, but as of right now, it's behind the paywall.
Okay, that kind of makes sense because you're actually interacting with the contract. He wants to make sure that it's locked down tight and working perfectly. So,
yeah.
And I'm looking at my test wallet in that dApp section. So guys, this is the first time you guys are seeing this new dApp. So we, as we grow as an ecosystem, pTGC and UFO, we're going to have access to tools like this, which is great, because now no longer do we need to only have pulsetgc.com to interact with the contract with. We have another site which further legitimizes our ecosystem.
Yeah, it just adds to decentralization, right? And that's really, really important. So
Yes. So you can do the same thing as on Pulse TGC. You can claim rewards. You can lock your tokens. It just looks different. I'm so not used to how it's set up. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to. But here's my statistics down here. You got the global protocol statistics here on the left. Total TGC staked, locked, and earned. Actually, that is how much my wallet has earned over here. And then your statistics. Your total pTGC balance, liquid balance, locked plus staked pTGC, and then your locked amount, and then it shows you the active locks And even down here, I haven't even looked at this yet, but he has a section down here that's headed. The heading says, why stake and or lock pTGC? Staking benefits. He says, staking pTGC offers a flexible way to earn passive income through reflections. Earn rewards in proportion to your staked amount. No lock-in period required. 1% of each transaction fee is distributed to stakers. 1% withdrawal fee from stakes is redistributed to stakers. And then he has locking benefits, transaction fee breakdown. I like this. And there's more. Just another way to interact with the contract. That's good. Were there any tweets that you wanted to review?
We can run over to them just because I think I have one on mine that's probably a good read, at least one.
The Gray 369. Was that the one you put up last night?
I don't know if it was last night. Maybe it was last night. Yesterday for sure, though.
Okay. pTGC and UFO, the future of cryptocurrency and an AI-driven economy. The shift towards AI and robotics in business. Businesses are increasingly turning to AI and robotics to enhance efficiency, productivity, and accuracy. The goal is to minimize reliance on human interaction by establishing systems that operate autonomously. This trend aligns with the foundational ethos of cryptocurrency, which initially promised trustless peer-to-peer financial interactions. Introducing pTGC and UFO. pTGC and UFO are pioneering cryptocurrencies with features designed for mechanical efficiency with the ability to create value appreciation with no human interaction. They implement automated mechanisms that contribute to price appreciation without the need for human intervention. These tokens have systems in place that offer predictable and reliable returns, further enhancing their attractiveness. And they offer scarcity through algorithmic adjustments. They manage token scarcity, which is crucial for value retention and growth. They are a new paradigm in token economics. Unlike traditional tokens where price increases are largely driven by human demand, pTGC and UFO are engineered to be self-sustaining. No human interaction dependency. The value of these tokens grows through utilities that manage supply and demand. This is getting very deep. Veblen goods effect. Contrary to typical economics where higher prices create demand, these tokens leverage dynamics where increased price leads to higher demand, much like Veblen goods. And it goes on to sustainable growth, avoiding the music stop scenario, where I think you talk about users needing to exit before the music stops. Where on pTGC and UFO, we don't necessarily need to exit. We can, exit through from our principal. We can exit through yield. I'm going to skip a lot of this in. Automated utility, enhanced trust and reliability, and then a conclusion. I'll read the conclusion. Welcome to DeFi 3.0, where pTGC and UFO lead the charge in cryptocurrencies that not only adapt to, but thrive in an AI and robotics dominated economic landscape. They offer a glimpse into a future where the mechanics of value creation are as automated and efficient as the businesses they parallel, providing a robust, self-sustaining model for token economics with a model where they increase while the blockchain they are built on increases as well.
Yeah. So let me rewind a little bit. You were talking about the music stop scenario. So in a standard token, the value that enters the token comes from a human entering the ecosystem. So they are putting, let's say, PLS into the liquidity pool. They're getting that token out, and they're going to hold that token. Why are they holding that token? Because in the future, they're expecting a return on the value they put in. So at some point, that user is hoping for the ability to extract value and then take that value into other ecosystems, into their personal life, or to pay bills, etc. Right? That's the only reason they're coming in. So users are coming in with value, but eventually they're going to get out. So how are they going to get out? The only way with the standard token, 99% of them out there, actually more, is by more users coming in after them and increasing the price of the token, so then that beginning user can actually take the value from the other people into their personal wallet, leaving the other people holding the bag, because there is only so much value that go around, because the value is only coming from other users coming in. So it creates a scenario of robbing Peter to pay Paul. One of the users is making value on another user losing value. So when the music stops, when new users stop coming in, what happens is there's some people left holding the bag, because there's no external money coming in that isn't based on a user eventually wanting money out. This is 99.9% of projects out there. The only way value increases is by users coming in. But all those users eventually are hoping for the value to be taken out, and with profits. It's a system that isn't really sustainable, in my opinion. They do work. Like, if you can keep getting new people in, then it keeps the music going. But when you stop getting new people in, the music turns off and everyone tries to grab a chair. And usually not everyone can grab a chair, hence the reason some people are left without a chair. Hence, they get stuck holding the bag. What I love about our system is it's actually value generating. So there's value entering the system that isn't wanting value out in the future. So what's that mean? Like, when we're doing a buy and burn and we're burning the tokens we're buying, well, that value has been injected into the system and there's no one expecting it out. So that value is actually left for all the current holders, creating a scenario where actually everyone can win, where the music won't stop or can not stop, because we have things that are generating value that are not based on a user coming in that eventually wants the money out. And that's really, really unique to our system. And it's really important for people to kind of start to recognize and pay attention to. Another thing about this whole topic is the AI and mechanically driven systems. If people haven't been paying attention in the last 10 years, AI has been taking over mechanical situations, like robotics have been taking over standard jobs in industries and businesses and companies. So you have two options, really, in my opinion. You can learn how to use those to your benefit, or you personally can be replaced by them. Those are the only two options. So you can pick to be on the leading edge of it and be someone who actually knows how to work with these things, or the people who do that and those robotics and AI are just going to replace you, because they are more consistent, more dependable. They don't need sick days. You can guarantee a certain amount of production out of them. They work faster. They work harder. This is why everything is moving in this direction, is you cannot keep up with them. So you want to be able to actually use these to benefit yourself, or you're just going to get replaced by them eventually. It's just the honest truth. So it makes sense that us as a token try to be on the front end of this shift in society. Like, the society is shifting. So we need to pay attention to this and be on the leading edge of it and say, okay, well, we see AI and mechanically driven companies really succeeding and everything is moving in that direction. So why wouldn't we move our tokens in that direction? So with pTGC and UFO, our utility alone is all mechanically driven. We aren't relying on human interaction to make our systems function. We actually have code that's functioning along with our utility that's value generating as a mechanically driven process. So we are actually in line to succeed with the way society is going, so we don't get left behind or replaced. And if you don't get in line with that, eventually we're getting replaced. And, in turn, that, in my opinion, competitive tokens that aren't in line with this are going to get replaced too, because you're just not going to be able to keep up when, let's say, we're dependent on our mechanics and our LPs and our code, and where another token is dependent on a human buying and holding. We already know humans aren't dependable. We know that eventually they want value extraction. So why are we depending on something that's so not dependable? You want to depend on things that are dependable and are consistent and don't want value out in the future and want to consistently put it in. And I think that really sets us up good for the future, right? Like, along with the ability to adapt as like AI and mechanics just go stronger and stronger and stronger, we can actually run into those things firsthand, because we are I'd say we're one of the main tokens that have actually mechanically found a way to utilize this system to generate value. So we kind of already are on the front edge, and due to us having a DAO, we can kind of remain on this front edge and keep evolving with how the future will evolve around us, because it's going to evolve quick. Like, I promise you, within 3 years, like, people are going to be very, very amazed technology-wise, mechanically, robotic-wise, and AI-wise, how much of our world is actually using these systems and how many jobs and humans are replaced by these systems. And you just want to make sure you're on that right side of that fork.
1,000%. I mean, if we don't adopt AI and bots, we're just going to be left in the dust. I mean,
you get replaced, right?
I mean, there was a time when people resisted books, and now we can't live without them. Like, imagine a world without books. Oh, that'd be awful. But,
well, there was a time when you resisted internet, right? Like, a lot of people thought that internet was only going to be for an email, right? And they were like, well, we can just mail it. And then look at 10 years later, is if you didn't adopt it, you got replaced by it. You couldn't keep up with the growth of the internet. Well, we're going into the next revolution of that now, in my opinion, and it's AI and robotics. You see large companies switching their entire workforce to robotics or mechanics, and you see technology switching their whole workforce to AI. And, I think we're in a good position because we have a system that's built behind where the world is headed, and we're using it to our benefit. And I think people should pay attention to that, right? It's going to be a huge narrative in crypto. We have that narrative pretty much tapped into. And not only tapped into is like we claim it, we're actually using these mechanics in real time, and we have proof of them working for 1.5 years now. And that's a lot more than most have.
Yeah.
Zen, I'd like to read the last post and then get your guys' comments on it. It's a little bit lengthy, not too long, but I'll read it pretty quickly. This is the post that's on the main pTG official site, Twitter feed. It says, pTGC is a performance amplifier of the Pulse Chain network. Think of it. The entire liquidity web is filled with Pulse, PulseX, Hex, Inc., pDAI, Teddy, Atropa, UFO, and all of the best blue chips, meme coins, and narratives on the blockchain, with the ability to add more as they appear and prove themselves to be true. Now take the pTGC mechanics and apply them. pTGC is a fee on transaction token, which means that the protocol generates revenue from outside of itself and brings it into the protocol. That revenue is perpetually being forced to fit into less and less tokens, as pTGC has a capped supply and is designed hyperdeflationary. This means that the price floor of pTGC is forever being mathematically forced up. And this process is amplified by the automatic buy and burns, automatic LP ads, and yield being paid to holders, constantly removing supply from the market. This is why, since the deployment of pTGC, the tokens has outperformed the very things that back it. It's that simple. pTGC is reflexive with its LP pairs. So when Pulse, PulseX, Hex, Inc., Teddy, pDAI, Atropa, UFO, and much more do X's, pTGC benefits and realizes those X's as well because of the reflexive nature of Pulse X LP provisioning. And of course, this is before taking into account the protocol's own X's over and beyond the Pulse network core assets it's bonded to in liquidity pools. This is called the X multiplier. To date, 11.62% of the supply, or 39 million pTGC tokens worth $14,500,000, has been bought and then burned. This means that those tokens can never be sold again. And the PLS used to buy those tokens was given to pTGC holders. In addition to the amplifying nature of pTGC against the things that back it, core network tokens, this protocol is paying a very fair, balanced, and stable yield to holders, not from inflation, but rather from network activity. This is a true bet on Pulse Chain. And for those that understand what RH has built, the Grays is an absolute game changer, where math, mechanics, and money converge into a perfect storm that can't be stopped. Yes, the price can have large swings. Yes, you can buy a top. Yes, there are risks. But the Grays trend is truly your friend for the life of Pulse Chain. And the mechanics are pure benevolence toward its holders. Below is the monthly chart of pTGC versus Pulse Chain. As you can see, pTGC is a performance amplifier on Pulse Chain. With pTGC, you own all the best assets on chain in one token. This token pays sustainable, liquid yield with mechanics that constantly drive up the price floor higher over time and generates millions in outside revenue per year given back to its holders. It's complete, it's transparent, it's a finished product, it's audited, it's renounced, it's all protocol-owned liquidity, it's got flawless operation, it's immutable, it's self-custody. Get in the know, current market cap 125 million, the Gray's still turning heads. And it's got the image of the monthly chart of pTGC against Pulse, which is just done amazing. I think that was speaking exactly to what you were saying.
Yeah, I think you just summed up this hour and a half space in a matter of 2 minutes. Nice. It was like written perfectly. It like covered all the topics. That tweet's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what it does for me is when you just read that and you take that in, it summarizes the reality of what's actually happening, right? It's actually a system that can't be stopped, that's generating millions of dollars of revenue from the outside world and bringing it back into the system. The tokens are constantly deflating. There's less and less and less tokens every single day, every single week, every single month. And so that economic energy has to keep fitting that's coming into the system from the outside. It's being forced to fit in less and less and less tokens. Mathematically, the only thing that can happen is the price can go up. The only thing that makes the price go down for a time is, like you said, when somebody wants to go and extract value, they can push those pTGC tokens back into the pool. They can take some value out, but then the system just goes, buys it back up to its new floor. Everything finds a new ratio, but now you're still left with a system that is generating millions of dollars of revenue. There's less coins. New people got coins for less on a dip, and the system keeps going. And that's why we've seen the chart against Pulse Chain just explode since day one, because the system doesn't have an option to do anything else but over time frames keep the chart going up, because you're fitting more and more economic energy into less and less tokens.
100%.
It's phenomenal. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, you know, and this is obviously my opinion, but when you really like try to zoom out and soar from above, this is a product that I think everyone in crypto can honestly say that they've been searching for quite a long time. Yeah, maybe a lot won't get into it, right? Like you can guide them to water, but you can't make them drink. But when you really zoom out and you start like running through your checklist of like what you came to crypto for and what you were looking for in that token, and you know what you want for your future as far as a long-term hold, a short-term hold, really anything, I think a lot of your boxes will get checked with this ecosystem, especially if you're here on Pulse Chain, right? Like if you're already here on Pulse Chain and you believe in RH tokens, it starts to become somewhat of a no-brainer because you get all the positive movement of them, you get all the negative movement of them, but then you also have tokenomics set in place to create a hyper-deflationary supply that pays you APY for doing what you're already doing anyways. Just hold it. And it, in turn, forces the price upwards against the tokens that you were holding in the first place. Pulse Chain.
Yeah, so when you were talking about the music stop scenario, right? Which is, I love this community because this community is like one of the only communities that ever is willing to even talk about, you know, downside stuff, you know, because it's just reality, right? But the interesting thing is, you know, per what we just read, is that this system is going to keep doing that very summary all the way up, and it's going to keep doing that same thing all the way down. So when he's talking about, you know, AI replacing humans, right? So on you know, from wherever this cycle ends, next year, the year after, wherever the hell it ends, and then it starts to come back down, the bots don't care. They don't have emotions. They're just going to keep rebalancing the pools and paying out holders and burning more tokens and adding more to LP. And they're just, and so wherever the bottom lands, right? I feel, and this is all experimental right now, but I feel wherever the bottom lands on, you know, for the cycle 2 of pTGC, it's going to be much higher than where a coin without these mechanics would land. Because I think that you're going to have a lot of people that say, you know, I just want to remain in long-term positions in these things, but I also don't want to take a chance of, you know, potentially losing, like thinking I can get in lower than I can. And I think that this does cause a conundrum for people, right? And I think that, you know, as long as Pulse Chain does well, and everything continues to go well, I think that, you know, there's going to be a lot of people looking at this cycle 2, looking to take positions and looking to front run what they perceive to be a low, and even people re-injecting capital who took out positions at what they thought was a top, right? Because of this, those type of things aren't built into other tokens, in my opinion. Like, they're just not. I haven't seen it. You're not necessarily like looking and observing and just the environment, because this thing is so different that, you know, you really think, man, you know, cycle 2 on this thing, if this thing lands, like, for example, most things that go up, so for pTGC, it's going to go up based on the success of the mean of the Pulse Chain Network's core tokens and the things it's tied to. So you have the X multiplier, right? You have that. It's going to do the X's of itself plus the X multiplier of the mean of everything it's tied to. It's going to go up, and everything is going to be happening on the way up. And then on the way down, everything's going to be happening on the way down. But where does the system land in terms of how much LP is in there now? How many tokens are burned now? And you're damn sure not. It's like any L1, any first cycle L1, after it had its major parabolic run, it didn't land anywhere near where it started. The core tokens, the best meme coin tokens, you know, the ones that actually stuck around, they're way higher than where they started. Even down 90-something%, 85%, whatever it is. But with a system like this, it's like, okay, this is the first time you've had these built-in mechanisms. And so, Zen, this is how I think. I'm like, okay, I don't want to treat this one the same in that sense, because I've never seen anything that has these built-in mechanics that do super incentivize your earning yield liquidly. You're not illiquid in your stakes. You can take your yield anytime you want. Do you really want to get rid of your entire position on something like that if you have a good position? Probably not, but it'll be interesting to find out, man. It really will.
Yeah. One of the main things I was even getting at with the music stopping scenario is with 99% of tokens, or most tokens, is all the value that's in that token is from users swapping, let's say, PLS for that token, right? So all of the value that's actually in those liquidity pools have claim checks for all of that liquidity. Users are eventually wanting that value out. So when the music stops, those users are going to try to find a chair. This is what happens, when you hit the top of a bull market, everyone tries to grab a chair, and then hence the price falls 80%. And then there's some people left holding the bag, which is the users that didn't get the chair, right? Well, with this system, it's not, the price isn't going up, or buys of the chart aren't happening just from users buying the chart and wanting eventually to take profits. Since it's actual value generating, and this is what separates us from 99% of crypto, is we actually have systems in play generating value and injecting that value into our LP pairs with buy and burns, LP ads, APY to holders that possibly get sold or possibly don't get sold. Maybe they compound. But the thing is, it's outside value coming in, that the outside value coming in isn't expecting a return out in the future. They're literally putting it in and then just sending tokens to a debt address. So there is no future extraction from the value that is generated. The only people who can extract that value are people already in the system. So that value is directly getting given to the people who are already in the system, which is in a way, us putting more chairs out for everyone. So when music does stop, there is enough chairs for everyone there. So then they don't feel the need to rush for the chair because they're confident that there's enough seats for everyone. They don't need to run and get after that chair because there is enough value for everyone. And even if that chair isn't there right now, they know that tomorrow is going to generate more chairs and more chairs and more chairs. So they feel confident in the system for the long term and sustainability of the system. And then, going back to the AI mechanics and stuff like that, is we know that where the world is heading is we know the dependability of robotics, mechanics, AI, and they work faster, harder, more dependable. Like everything is going in that direction. You can get on board or you're going to get replaced. It's that simple. And I believe our token has these mechanics built into the code that put us in the category that is on board. We are already using these systems to our benefit, where rest of crypto, 99% of crypto, don't even know these things are happening yet. Like even if you look at the space, there's 30 people in here. Only 30 people are here on the Saturday, wanting to learn about the system, when there's millions of people in crypto that doesn't even know this kind of stuff exists. They're still chasing a dog meme that has no tokenomics, no sustainability, no value generating systems. They don't even know this kind of stuff is happening. And RH even talked about that on that video that he produced. He goes are we even moving in the right direction yet? Because what I see people chasing tokens about spitting on a PP and dog memes. But there's Pulse X here that is hyper deflationary, that generates value off of the volume of the network. The same systems that we're also operating off of, he's bragging about. And, and it's been working really well. That's about it, really.
It's awesome. Prairie?
Yeah, we've been going for almost 2 hours, guys. What do you think, Zen? Should we call it a day?
Yeah,
Someone sounds like they're in like a Christmas mall and just playing some Christmas music in the background.
Yeah.
No, that's not Christmas music. That's my son watching Curious George.
No, that's funny.
So that's the show right now.
Zen, all this stuff is very powerful, man. You know, as a crypto geek guy, I'm so glad that this thing fell on Pulse Chain, because it's just you know, one of the things that this does for people when I introduce it to them, and then we could get off. And I think this is a good conversation for maybe another time. But when you introduce people to pTGC, it actually amplifies their understanding of crypto.
Yeah.
It's like a crash course. It's like getting it. It's like what would normally take a person a lot longer. pTGC forces people to get smarter in a very short time frame, because you learn so much about how DeFi works and A&Ms work and how liquidity pools work. It really is a benefit to a new person coming in, because they get introduced to all of the most important concepts of crypto, like in one token, and it really helps their learning curve. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about it, is when you see someone's light bulb go off and they're like, whoa, I got it now. This is crazy. You know, you don't get that, like you said, in the PP tokens and stuff like that.
Oh, definitely not. And the other side of that is it's got a lot of stuff that is also relatable to the real world that a lot of these people don't understand as well. Like, a lot of people don't think about, like, in detail what drives value in real world assets as well as crypto assets, and how you can actually put these two things together and build the things that have created value throughout the last 1,000 years. Like, things in the real world for the last 1,000 years have had value for a reason, right? Like gold, for an example. It's hard to get, it's scarce, it's got utility. These things we're not reinventing the wheel. And a lot of people that end up here in crypto, like trying to invest and make money, they don't even understand this stuff. So when they're getting the crash course of crypto, they're actually getting a crash course of why things have value in the real world. And a lot of, like, in real life things that we've put into this token that obviously are about this token, but they can also zoom out and say, like, oh, well, that's why my house has value, or that's why a sports car has value, or that's why a Rolex watch has value. You know, that's why gold has value. You know, oh, that's why indexes have value. Like, a lot of the same things that we have put into the code of this token have been pulled out of some of the biggest value assets in the whole entire world. Like, I studied property, houses, luxury goods, indexes. Like, what gave all these things value? We need to incorporate that with these smart contracts, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to put rubber and air around the wheel to make it a better ride.
That's a great place to end the space, I think, right there, man.
I do want to end with one comment from Rodolfo Rodriguez. He says, I remember when Colt Dow put up a billboard at Times Square in New York, the token exploded. And I just, while we were talking, I looked up the cost for a billboard in Times Square. A medium-sized billboard would be $5,000 to $10,000 a month. So there's a challenge. Somebody make it happen. And they're on the East Coast. We could put aliens up there. Yeah, man. Let's put down $10,000 on a billboard in Times Square. See what happens. Somebody can do it.
Yeah, and Colt now, look at the chart. It's because the money kept going to places that didn't directly benefit the system.
Yes.
Yeah, they were generating this Cold DAO is a project I studied very, very in depth in the design of pTGC. And the thing I noticed is they were actually doing a really, really good job generating value. Like they had lots of traction. Their theme was good. Their website was good. It was very, very sticky of an ecosystem. But the value that they were generating, they weren't actually injecting back into the ecosystem. They were like gambling it on random plays and using it in marketing that wasn't necessarily coming back in full turn. And that was like when I go to where I studied hundreds of projects and I took things that they did well and took out things that they didn't do well. That was one of the biggest ones that I saw is they generated thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, but none of that value was actually getting injected back into their ecosystem. They were getting injected into other ecosystems, which made no sense to me.
Yeah, and you also had to watch for the fact that those other ecosystems that money was, in quotes, getting injected to, where that actually was going. Yeah. And that's the thing about this system, guys. It's transparent as glass.
Yeah, and another thing we have an advantage is they were somewhat reliant on people buying and selling to create their volume, to create their value generated, which then that value generated in turn always came from a user. What I love about our system is the value generated isn't coming mainly from users. It's coming from the market moving up and down and us giving the market liquidity to arbitrage and market make, and it generates us value from an outside source. That's the kicker, is we're generating value from an outside source. A normal token generates its value from a user coming into that source. So even if it's a fee, right? Let's say they paid 5% in. Even though they paid the 5% in, they're still expecting that value out. It doesn't matter that it got washed, but when you can actually create a system that pulls outside value into the system, that outside value that got pulled in is not expecting anything out. It's all a net positive. And I think when crypto finally figures this out, what we have here, it's going to be with the Pulse chain revaluing and adoption coming here to Pulse chain and their ears and eyes opening up. We're going to be at a lot higher floor as far as liquidity web, price, market cap, everything. And at that point, it's going to be a really, really big machine.
Bitcoin is down 10%. Ethereum is down 15%. Pulse chain is down 33%. And I don't think the bull runs over.
No, it's not, man. But Bitcoin needed to chill out. For us to have a standard or a longer cycle, Bitcoin can't just go to $200,000 in a month.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was talking to B-Roots about this last week, and it's actually really good for the cycle that Bitcoin is chilling out
100%
right now.
Yep. Absolutely. We want a longer cycle to pump our bags with yield from our pTGC and UFO holdings. Yeah.
Well, the biggest takeaway for me right now with Pulse and this subsequent FUD event that took the prices back down. Look at the price of pTGC, almost $130 million market cap. Look at where Pulse Chain is. Look at where Pulse Chain was when pTGC launched. It was basically at the same price when it launched at a $50,000 market cap or whatever it was. Now it's at $130 million market cap, right? The amount of X that it's doing on the Pulse Chain network against the Pulse Chain network, against the native coin, is just astronomical. So even though Pulse Chain is not doing well because of, the things that we know that the hurdles we got to get over, the ecosystem here, because of how it's created, is killing it, right? And I think that's indicative of that last post that was put up. I think it's an important read to really grasp that and understand that we are still able to, the protocol is able to still add the best blue chip tickers on this chain into its LPs at the bottom 15 months later, right? And it also has the ability to continuously look for those things that do deploy on the chain, that look good and that have all the fundamentals necessary. So if something else does come out that proves itself to be good, you can bond some LP with that. And now that LP is generating more revenue for the holders. And it's got such an awesome way to be able to take advantage of markets pivoting, markets changing, new things coming out. In addition to, honestly, this is like a triple bottom. This is like almost a triple bottom. But I think it's an exciting thing because for the people who know how to take advantage of it and they understand that pulse chain can't be turned off, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens from here.
Yeah, real quick, I guess, before we shut it down, the DAO has $500 million or 500 million pulse coming out in the next 24 hours, which is just more LP that we're adding at the bottom of pulse chain. So going back to what Mando was saying is a lot of things, a lot of tokens don't really have much they can do to take advantage of these bottoms. But since our system is generating value constantly, we can actually use that value that we've generated to make our system stronger at these low levels.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, guys, appreciate you, and I'm out of here. But you guys have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks for coming up, Mando. Banana, thank you for co-hosting with me. I really appreciate it. Everyone who's listening, everyone who is putting in Banana's chat and making comments, I appreciate you guys being here and adding to the conversation. You guys have a good weekend.
You too, Zen.
All right, see you guys.
Bye-bye. Okay. That was it. That was a good space. That was a good space. That was fun. They always are. I love the Saturday spaces. Well, guys, thanks so much for showing up. And thank you for contributing in the chat. That always helps to have something to talk about. And obviously, the reason we're here is to help to talk about things, right? And if you guys have questions, you get them answered, then you're better off, right? Yeah. Everybody, have a great Saturday and a great weekend. I'm holding an AMA tomorrow. If you're brand new, jump on. It's on my channel. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Pacific time. 2 p.m. Pacific time right here. Thanks, guys. Talk soon. Bye.